The time has come for humanity and immortals to work together to defeat Lord Tongtian after years of animosity. Are all parties prepared for this? It would appear so, given that General Lei did not think twice to stab himself with his spear in order to preserve humanity. The populace gathers a massive army to battle Emperor Zhou and the whole Shang dynasty because they are sick of his oppression. Jiang Ziya, the elder, chooses to employ the immortal scroll's strength to do this. If the might of immortals wanes and the elder begins the rite of opening a magic scroll, General Deng Chanyu is assigned the assignment of destroying the heavenly altar. Behind Jiang Ziya's back, his sworn adversaries, the elders, manifest, and a bloody conflict between the warriors ensues. However, the Shang dynasty minister, Shingong Bao, entangles the youngster in a web of black tentacles and throws him to the ground with the intention of stealing the scroll. His devoted soldier rushes to his assistance. The adversary dynasty's representatives engage in a protracted battle, but Jiang Ziya changes into silver smoke and flees while pleading with his soldiers for assistance. When the elders notice the scroll slipping away, they send a magical elephant fighter and a large army into combat with the giant, and Jiang Ziya commands the angel Lan Zhenzi to demolish the heavenly altar while the giant confronts them both. A panther attacks the elderly guy out of nowhere, but Deng Chanyu is able to save him. The Shang dynasty is surrounding the counselor on all sides, and all of the old man's soldiers are magically imprisoned. Even if General Angel Lan manages to let his buddies free, Shingong Bao eventually succeeds in taking the document with the names of all the immortals. The warriors witness an army suffering in the distance and understand that their sacrifices were in vain since, once the villains have the scroll, they would be able to subjugate the entire globe. One of the troops exhibits his injured men to the general, arguing that because Shingong Bao is attempting to foment human enmity, they must immediately get ready for war and the eternal. In the meantime, the warrior Nizam makes his way to the city that the despot Zhou has left in rubble and ashes. Jiang Ziya discovers the boy there and invites him to take part in the battle with the despised kingdom. At this point, the wicked emperor personally takes the accolades and rejoices in his impending victory with the help of lovely dancers. Warrior Lei, who has assumed the persona of an average man, is devastated by his defeat in battle and feels guilty for the deaths of his colleagues. However, Deng Chanyu urges the young man to gather himself and exact revenge on the evil Shingong Bao by liberating the world from him. Shingong Bao informs his master that he has the scroll, but they are unable to open the seal since the divine altar has been destroyed. Reminding him that he is only a piece in his dark realm, Lord Tongtian gives his henchmen instructions on how to handle the situation. Yang Jian burns everyone who could not be saved after examining the remnants of the victims. Warrior Lei, who has assumed the persona of an average man, is devastated by his defeat in battle and feels guilty for the deaths of his colleagues. However, Deng Chanyu urges the young man to gather himself and exact revenge on the evil Shingong Bao by liberating the world from him. Shingong Bao informs his master that he has the scroll, but they are unable to open the seal since the divine altar has been destroyed. Reminding him that he is only a piece in his dark realm, Lord Tongtian gives his henchmen instructions on how to handle the situation. Yang Jian burns everyone who could not be saved after examining the remnants of the victims. The stone dragon can now open the seal on the scroll and reveal the names of all immortals, so the nasty old man delivers it to him. Shingong Bao is approached by Yang Jiang, who claims that all he needs to do is grab the scroll, but that the elderly guy is not one to give up easy, so he calls the panther to guard the manuscript once more. The panther tucks his tail and moves aside when General Angel Lan shows up, leaving the elderly man to cope with the adversaries alone. When he uses his magic wand, Lei immediately loses his ability and falls to the ground like any other man. The lads appear to have a decent chance of obtaining the scroll when Nejia, another of Jiang Ziya's men, arrives to their help, but suddenly, black clouds collect above them from which fire rays detonate. The elderly man laughs as he grabs the scroll, sure he has broken the seal, but the writing is once again unresponsive. The entire group exchanges perplexed glances before abruptly being confronted by a new immortal, the dwarf Tu Shinsong. The soldiers understand that they ought to follow the boy, but Lei shakes his hands to energize him so that there would be no chase. There are now 3 people simultaneously vying for possession of the relic as Tu Xiao Song effortlessly ties up elderly Shingong Bao and demands he hand over the scroll of the coronation of the immortals to him. Neja and the dwarf begin to argue, but Yang Jiang swiftly separates the men and offers to talk and compromise. While in captivity, Shingong Bao attempts to persuade his old buddy that something is wrong because the seal has been broken, but they still haven't become gods and don't have the list of all the immortals. The antagonist asserts that this is the entire plan of those who wish to exterminate the immortals. Jiang Ziya gathers his men and clarifies that the issue is with the damaged altar and that the shattered seal was insufficient. The villains need to create a new altar in order to unlock the gates of heaven. The elderly man examines the diagram and understands that the Shang dynasty is after the human world and that it may soon be extinct. The instructor permits the dwarf to remain with them but reminds him of the regulations, so the small-time burglar must return the scroll while acting as though he accidentally stole it. Neja attempts to break Shingong Bao's staff, but nothing happens, and Lan just feels pain from the sound. Neja worries that they would never be able to beat the baddies in this fashion, which leads to a fight amongst the friends as a result. General Deng Chanyu, tasked with protecting the common people, smiles as he witnesses them enjoying the meal they brought. When the dwarf sees what they are fighting over, the girl comes to him for assistance, but he refuses to take part in the conflict without receiving a couple more bags of money. The elderly man demonstrates to his soldiers that the scroll is empty and informs them that the immortals were turned against people a year ago by the oppressive emperor, and that they now must activate the scroll to seal all immortals. When Yang Jiang hears this, he believes Jiang Ziya intends to sacrifice them in order to defeat the evil Zhou. A huge enemy elephant comes into the camp and destroys everything in its path as the group is debating who is right and who is wrong. A battle breaks out in the camp just after the leader of the Shang Empire exits the gate, and hundreds of men are once more killed. The dictator orders the massacre of all people while the city is in upheaval. Tu Xingsong rushes to locate a quiet area, but instead he is captured by Shingong Bao, who broke out of the prison. The old guy leaves after getting his magical sword. Sure that he has finally won, Jiang Ziya witnesses Huan Tenghua being held captive and is forced to hand over the scroll in order to free the man. After achieving his objectives, the evil army vanishes, but Tenghua still passes away in Tu Xingsong's arms. In accordance with all of the traditional Chinese laws, the elderly man gathers the surviving, and they bury the men. Even the most courageous and powerful men become self-conscious in the presence of it. General Lei wakes up in the meanwhile, somewhere in the water. Shingong Bao carries a scroll to the new altar in preparation for opening the gates of heaven while the boys' pals evaluate their defeats and assess their chances of success. General Lan resolves to take on his demonic persona with a wound after becoming tormented once more by his failure to defeat his foe. He does this after spotting a spear on the shore. All of the immortals have departed Jiang Ziya's camp, and Jiang Ziya surmises that they have located Shingong Bao. The superhero team does identify the bad guy, and they are preparing to launch an assault to seize the scroll and stop him from unlocking the celestial gates. Lord Tongtian and his men come to Earth to acquire power, but Shingong Bao opened a gateway too late. The populace must immediately take cover to avoid the pogrom the villain is launching at their heads. When a hell dragon emerges from the dark clouds, Yang Jiang and his allies strive to defend the populace, and the man even tries to burn his way out through a magical shield, but the warrior quickly learns that he cannot handle such strength. Tu Si Sung almost becomes the dragon's meal as he puts a burning rope into the serpent's jaws while Maja attempts to entice it away. The warriors assault the monster collectively, breaking it into a great number of pieces. They come to the realization that they can win if they work together as they stand with their backs to one another. Lord Tongtian calls in his entire army in response to this, but Yang Jiang remains unshaken and instructs his comrades to be ready for the visitors. Time for a challenging conflict. Shingong Bao opens a scroll in the meantime, revealing a list of immortals who, in accordance with the villain's scheme, would arrive to wipe off the mortals. Tong Tian makes it apparent that he has changed his mind and no longer needs the servant's services, but the elderly man reminds the Lord that he promised him a kingdom of men as gratitude. Also the whole of humanity. As the evil ruler opens additional portals, immortal soldiers are let loose to kill the populace. The little squad cannot handle so many foes, so they prepare to accept their death. However, surprisingly, help arrives in the shape of immortal mercenaries of Emperor Zhou who refuse to serve the dictator and unite with their old foes in order to defend their country. The conflict goes on, but now Lord Tongtian's army is defeated. A Black Panther suddenly appears, and Deng Chanyu resolves to deal with it on her own in order to keep his buddies occupied. This turns out to be a trap. The Panther takes Deng Chanyu directly into Shingong Bao's clutches, but neighborhood kids save the girl and capture the elderly man. Shingong Bao, a villain, instructs his enemies on how to defeat Lord Tongtian in order to survive. He wishes Deng Chanyu success in this battle as he hands him his panther and magic staff. The local woman immediately brings him to his wits with a frying pan as the elderly man attempts to yell something offensive after her. While Deng Chanyu smuggles in a scroll to put a stop to the evil, Lord Tongtian prepares to burn the city to the ground. However, elderly man Jiangya's squad refuses to back down. Nisha dies as a result of the Lord's anger after becoming even more enraged after realizing this. He collapses while blazing brightly. Every single other warrior also finds themselves on the ground, close to the altar, and in the path of magical daggers. The elderly guy is certain that nobody can stop him at this point, but Naja, who has attained immortality, aids his pals by conjuring an army of such heroes. The immortals join their magical spears to form a powerful dome that surrounds the old man and obliterates all of his troops. Deng Chanyu finally succeeds in sealing the book and shutting the gates of heaven at this point. Now secure, the citizens may enjoy the beautiful sky and give thanks to their heroes for handing the scroll to their instructor while pledging to remain vigilant. Emperor Zhou has a decrease in happiness at the same time since he loses everything after losing the power struggle. He will never be aware that Jiang Ziya has signed a friendship treaty, ending the hostility between humans and immortals in his country.